money that was allocated to the department. That's all I'm asking. So there were no changes. Okay, thank you very much. Honorable members, can I then put the strat plan, the annual performance plan, and the budget before you for clarity seeking, for discussion, for probing? The department is saying to us that this is what they want to do over the next 5 years, and the amount of money that they have been given to do it. The necessary implication that we should draw from the strat plan is that if they do everything that they are saying they're going to do, this indeed is going to go a long way towards resolving the challenges in the sector, responding to issues of inclusive growth, job creation, lowering the cost of living, and creating a capable and ethical developmental state. So you are asked then to make your comments or approve this as the visionary and ambitious program of government in the ICT sector. I'm going to take 2 hands at a time. We'll get responses. We've got just over an hour and a half to engage. We'll take 2 hands, get responses, move on. I see that in terms of my numbers, we've got 6 members, so we should have 3 rounds of questions. I would like us obviously to be as detailed as possible on this. We don't have much time before the date that has been put for the consideration of this budget vote. May I see hands? Or can I assume everybody is going? So I'll start in the front. Honorable Matafa and Honorable Chauke Adonis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Minister and DM, DG and the team, honorable members. Chair, mine are very few, and I think they revolve around the policy positions that we are taking. Maybe let me appreciate the presentations and all that spoke in presenting the information to us. Chair, you'd remember that a lot has been said around overhaul legislative framework review. Now, it is being presented that the ACA amendment bill is being withdrawn, and I note the explanation that is given. But my worry, Chair, is that there are serious areas like competition matters, as it's reflected on slide 18, that we would have appreciated to see them being reflected in the new amendment bill. And in another slide, they do highlight them as a risk, particularly the monopoly of the industry. Now, my worry is the withdrawal at this time, because for me, it's a very late stage. And this also has an impact on the cost of data, because we believe that the Act could have been used to assist customers who are constantly complaining about the high cost of data, and the poor in particular. So we are speaking about economic inclusion in the sector. So how can the minister justify this retraction? And what about the funds that have been allocated in the process of the amendment of the bill? If there are any, how do we justify having spent those particular funds and then after that we come back and withdraw? The withdrawal, Chair, for me, I'm not sure, and the minister can assist. Are you not falling in a trap where the incumbent always tries to reverse initiatives of the predecessor, given our arrangement in government as well? Maybe in some corners you see this particular act as an ANC process, and maybe then you want to bring in your own flavor, hence the withdrawal. Because for me, I'm really concerned, because the amendment bill for us had promised us a great deal, especially for alleviating our consumers from the challenges they are facing. And maybe you can just share with us, how do we anticipate our consumers and the industry itself to be assisted through policy instruments in the absence of the amendment? Because without the overhauling of the bill, then you only have policy instruments to deal with the issues that maybe I would have raised. Chair, the other point is just on the audio and audiovisual media services and online safety. Can we please get clarity on the presented outcome and the intention behind the framework as presented? The audio and audiovisual online safety. Yeah, the question is around the outcome that has been presented and what would be the intentions behind the framework. So what are we seeking to achieve in that particular space? Chair, the last point for me is on the combating of disinformation and fake news. We know that we are dealing with a lot of content, especially that is generated through artificial intelligence. And we believe that the white paper would have been critical in the current time that we find ourselves, especially of high resolution content streaming, hyper connectivity, and the like. So can we just find a view from the department, what is it that they are doing along those lines to ensure that online safety is guaranteed, either through policy or through legislation as it relates to audio and audiovisual online safety? My parting shot would be, we are concerned from our side as the ANC study group, Comrade DM through you, Chair, the reduction in some of the targets that had been set before. So where possible, we'd request that the ministry and the department try to revert back to the original targets, because it is common knowledge that in our industry, targets are always moving, but they never move backwards. They always move forward. So if we look at reducing the targets that we have placed in the previous strategic plans, are we not actually widening the gap between what we seek to achieve and where the country is actually in the sector? Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. That is my side of the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Matapa. Honorable Chauke Adonis.
It's on.
It's on. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to yourself and the honorable members, the Minister and the Deputy Minister and the delegation that is before us. We do appreciate the presentation that has been put before us, but one also finds themselves quite concerned in terms of the shift from the original APP and strategic plan that we had received, also taking into consideration that they were not, as a department, affected by the what we call what is it, 3.0 budget, but yet we've got some changes that are being presented. I would like to find out, perhaps from the department, when the minister announced, I would call the suspension of the process of the SABC bill, it was indicated that the plan was so that this can be done in concurrence or jointly with the audiovisual white paper. But yet we're sitting months later and we don't know what the way forward is for both. And I think it's quite important for us to have an appreciation and understanding what the impact of that is on the audio and visual sector, but also on the SABC. Perhaps if the minister can give us an indication of where we are currently, are we planning on having any further delays? Or is there a proposal in your strategy that perhaps could elaborate on that? I don't think I saw anything that further elaborated, but there was an indication in terms of the plan, but it did not say how you're going to ensure it's done, and also the timelines were not adequately articulated. The second question I would have would be really understanding the impact of these delays on the broader society. Perhaps we can have an indication of what has been identified as the broader impact it has on, broader society in terms of accessing these particular services when we are delaying legislations that are quite critical, such as the white paper on the audio visual, when we are delaying the SABC bill, and basically we're saying that the SABC, we do not want to see it as a state institution or entity that is progressive and becomes successful. That's how I would personally view it. My other question would be centered around, the regulations, regulatory frameworks that are put in place. What are those looking like for the department to regulate foreign investment, especially in the digital space, when it comes to innovation, technology, AI? What are we going to be using as the formula? Is there an intermediary policy that we perhaps need to revise? Or is there a legislation that you will have as a proposal in order for us to regulate foreign investments that come in? The last question would be around, in terms of employment opportunities. There was an indication that there was 100% targets, there was 40% targets, but I'm not necessarily getting the sense of how exactly are we going to achieve that in the 5 years? Are those realistic targets, or are we setting targets and we're going to come back and say we only achieved 80% of that because on paper it looks good? Also understanding that and appreciating that it was presented that there was some budget cuts. How are you going to be able to achieve these targets that have been set, especially those at 100%, when you're having financial constraints? The last part would be on the opportunities again, economic transformation opportunities for the most vulnerable. I think in the presentation and the strat plan on APP, it speaks about opportunities for the vulnerable, persons with disabilities, those in rural communities, etc. But it does not give direct targets and timelines around that. And I'm very cautious or worried that it looks good for us to present that these particular marginalized groups are going to be taken into consideration and are part of our strategic overall plan. But we do not necessarily say what are the targeted programs that are going to be rolled out by the department or collaboratively by the department, the private sector, or other departments through this department, in order for us to ensure that there's adequate access to the services of economic opportunities, and also through the processes that you will be undertaking to involve stakeholder engagement. I think that would be my last one for now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me take two more. Honorable Ndishe, followed by Honorable Subrati. Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to the Minister and Deputy Minister and colleagues. Chair, I don't know what it will take for us to declare South Africa a failed system. I'm sitting here thinking, I sit in two committees, and I think we always like dealing with the same things. I think we're a country, actually Dr. Somadoda Fikeni said this, but we are a country with good intentions, but these things never get implemented. Because every time when we are sitting, I notice how everything that is on paper does not reflect on the ground. The things never reconcile. And we have a president who stands there and make promises to the people. But when we are dealing with the departments, it's always, but we don't have money to implement these things. So I always question, Oba, what is happening? I'm always filled with so many questions. We have a president every term. He stands in front of the nation and says, these are the things we are going to do. But when we come to portfolio committees, we always have people like DG touched me when she said, we would like to present something better, but, So we don't have money for a lot of things that are promised to the people. And we must sit in committees and approve and support these budgets, but it's not what, the government said it's going to do. And I ask, and Prof. Somadoda asked, are we a strategy-driven country or we are a treasury-driven country? Because it always lies with treasury.
like DG is saying here in Dogobana, SABC needs, some financial injection, and then this entity needs financial injection. And we know what's going to happen if these injections don't happen. We are going to fail, and people are going to look at this government to say, but you promised this. Like even this connectivity that we're talking about, to say, oh, we're connecting, you find out that it will be available in Sentin, but people of Alex cannot relate to the things that we are saying. So are we really like a strategy-driven country, or we are a treasury-driven country? So my question also then, Chair, I'm wondering, I probably just have two questions because I don't even know what to question with what we're faced with. I just want to know if there is a plan to dismantle white monopoly capital in the ICT sector. I think we can agree that there's a need to transfer ownership and control of the digital infrastructure to Black-owned SMMEs. And maybe I think my colleague, Honorable Adonisi, touched on this one, to ask, I see the claims of job creation, but I think it lacks like specifics in terms of like how will it be distributed to the marginalized communities, because we have young people in the rural areas, we've got young people in informal settlements, and we've got women and people living with disabilities. How are we going to ensure that these jobs are distributed to those people? And I cannot raise this one, DM. The rationalization of SOEs like BBI and Centec, iriska privatization. It's under the guides of efficiency. And as the EFF will never support that. We remain fully, to call for the state-owned entities to remain state-owned, but we want the corruption to be cleared. And maybe the last one, Chair, I just want to ask, are there any plans for the gov.za to be zero rated? Do we have any plans so that, the young people who want to access government sites? If I just want to know clarity on that. Do we have any plans to meet them halfway and make these gov.za to be zero rated? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Suprathi.
Thank you so much, Chair, and greetings to you, to Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and all officials in the House and honorable members. Chairperson, let me begin firstly by indicating that the African National Congress caucus deploys to this portfolio committee has interrogated the APP and the strat plan in detail. And maybe before that, we hugely anticipated to interrogate the amendments that was the reasons given for the delay. And what we've gathered here this morning is that the financial impact, I cannot link it to the reason for the delays. I would have accepted it, just to give a simple example for South Africans listening in, if the department told me we wanted 100 million for X project to purchase computers, and now we don't have that 100 million to buy computers, therefore computers was there, now it's not there. I can link that, but I can't see that. What I'm rather seeing, Chairperson, is a qualitative reduction and a regression in what has been presented here today. What I can see here is the undoing of great amount of work that's gone in up to the sixth administration that has now been removed. And let me cite that, Chairperson, by a few examples. I cannot accept that in the original plan, a 20% implementation of DCD transformation, digital transformation strategy is now reduced to a mere 5%. What is the thought? And that's not my question. I'm just trying to scenario sketch the uncomfortability of the caucus of the ANC in this house, the ECA bill that Honorable Matafa has alluded to, we've incurred expenditure. Now it's been rubbished. It's been taken off. It's there on the original target APP Manja, it's not there. Indab, why is it being taken off? Is that linked to the treasury funds that didn't come? That's the point I'm making. If you look at the redefinition and very nicely of the draft audio-visual bill, now it's reduced to a framework. A bill to a framework is regression. ECA bill to notice there is regression. 20% to 5% is regression. So what are we supposed to be approving? An APP that's regressive? That doesn't talk to the needs of society? We speak of 20,000 jobs being intended and hope to be created, yet in the Q1 to Q4 presentation, we don't see a deep dive in terms of what are we going to achieve every quarter. So we hold, as a committee, hold the department accountable that in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, where are we going to generate these jobs from? We are supposed to be implementing and approving, a plan for the next 5 years that we are supposed to be connected to. If we approve anything lesser than what this portfolio committee truly is committed to, we would be doing South Africans a disservice, because the vision of connectivity depends on this committee for the next 5 years. Chairperson, I'm going to have a few pointed questions. In the theory of change, as well as vision and impact statement, the role of the department is described as enabling a digitally transformed society and a localized competitive economy. Now, how is the department ensuring this? What programs, policies, and initiatives are being driven to drive digital transformation? And I want to place an emphasis on localized competitive economy. I'm leading to another point. Nowhere in the APP, Chairperson, and the strat plan are there any progressive programs to drive digital infrastructure and connectivity. South Africa is still lagging behind with its peers on an affordable broadband and rural connectivity. And the department here does not have a target on driving SA Connect and connecting the deep divided society. Question 2, Chairperson. We understand from your letter that APP tabling delays were due to the NT National Treasury engagements on SA Connect funding. So what are the outcomes of these engagements? What happens to the government investment? And I think DG did allude to that. And the current infrastructure deployed. We know that unused infrastructure is vulnerable to vandalism and exploitation. And how will this investment by government to date be safeguarded against such exploitation and vandalism? And more importantly, how do we ensure that citizens, especially the most vulnerable, are not adversely impacted? Is there no provision from the current 2.5 billion that can be utilized to sustain these networks? Chairperson, if we talk localized economy, my question is, what portion of South African economy in the digital space is owned by local industry players? What is the portion of the ICT sector? What is the portion of the IC sector is owned by Black, by colored, and by Indian groups? Whereas the minister is very quick to chant the EEIP and dismantling BBEE program. Is it because that the BBEE program has achieved its target? Has the department done a benchmark on the state of ICT sector and localization that it talks to? Chairperson, 2 more questions and I'll pause. Does the department have deliberate programs on localization? What programs and policies are in the current APP advocating to support your vision and mission and theory of change, advocating and championing a competitive localized economy? The African National Congress Chairperson advocated for transformation. We supported BEE and even through our wireless open access network in order to ensure level playing field and room for BBEE group to participate and own critical infrastructure in our country. Finally, Chairperson, instead, we are being pushed here to support an APP that advances for applications for equity equivalent investment programs. The facts are, The equity program is a mandate of DTIC. The DTIC has never raised concerns about unfair, unfavorable, and biasness in the ICD sector. The DTIC, if it had a problem, would have commissioned an inquiry and called for public engagement. Is this an area that the minister has mandate on? Prioritizing the EEIP over and above localization and advancing your mandate is not giving confidence of leadership. Unfortunately, Chairperson, intentional to lead the sector. Chairperson, I have a few more questions. If time allows, I will come back later, but I'll pause here. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Subrati. I'm going to take the last two members. Sorry, the members are going quite fast, so I think we can go with the time. Honorable Vilakazi, and then followed by Honorable Bojani.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you, Chair, and to the colleagues in the room. And it's lovely to have a full complement, or almost full complement, of the leadership of the department. My questions, Chair. I noted when you made your introduction, DG, that you mentioned that the department is primarily focused on policy. My colleagues have expressed concern at some of the movements around policy, particularly the ECA. But I wanted to say that I was pleased to see that there's more being added in terms of outcomes regarding the digital economy master plan, the digital transformation roadmap, because those are the instruments that we need indeed to prepare this ground for speedier digital transformation. So hopefully those moves will unlock processes moving forward. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to say that I noted that, and I thought it was good that the department is putting an emphasis on that policy aspect that only it can do, but that enables the wider sector. On the outcomes, I'm bothered by some of them, in that it's not clear how they will be achieved. For example, how will the department create 150,000 jobs? I think actually it was the Honorable Bojani that asked this previously. I heard something about a global business service system. I'm not even sure what that is or how that will impact this outcome. It also said that 90% of the population, one of the outcomes is 90% of the population covered by 5G. How, when SA Connect is currently inactive? And in fact, I don't believe that the lack of funding for SA Connect and the fact that it's inactive was mentioned as a risk, but I think it's a big one because it's one of the main pushes of the department. And then just also still staying on sort of the technical aspects of the outcomes, the indicators are much better, by the way, on the departmental presentation than what we've seen on the entity presentation. However, the concerns are still just around indicators that are not really, that could be strengthened. For example, number of country position papers approved. But to what end? A paper, a report is not normally an end in itself. And I think in the cases that we see here, those reports aren't an end in themselves. They are meant to achieve something else. So I would suggest to the department that we improve those outcomes to reflect the actual end goal, not what is an activity towards that main goal. And then also, and there's a lot in terms of departmental outcomes to do with monitoring. Again, the department doesn't exist to just monitor. Monitoring can be just looking, okay, it's here, okay, it's over there. But to what end is that monitoring? And I would say that the outcome ought to be then that end, the number of entities that are implementing the policy, or extent to which a policy has been implemented by entities or whatever it is, as opposed to just we're monitoring the policy. The department says the sunsetting of 2G and 3G is dependent on the MNOs, but I'd love to see a goal of the department itself. I believe the department has a role to play here. It is not just a taker of whatever the MNOs say. The department itself is in fact a driver here. What is the target of the department in regard to this phenomenon that has dragged on and does not seem to have an end in sight? And then we've had conditions actually, whilst again on the side on the technical aspects to the monitoring frameworks, we've had conditions. We've had to have conditions attached to the support given to the monitoring frameworks for the GCIS and MTDA, mainly due to the fact that we felt the outcomes and outputs, just the monitoring framework elements in those documents are not very helpful, not very meaningful. Some of them aren't even monitorable, if that's a word. And so I just wondered, what oversight role does the department play over the entities in the development of these, strategic plans and APPs? And this is just a standalone question. What will happen? The auction of spectrum is in the plans of both ICASA and the department. And there was talk of this 102 million that's been provided for that purpose. What is it that is going to happen? I have not seen on any of the documents. What is it that is going to happen then in regard to the auctioning of the spectrum this year? Will we see spectrum open this year, or is it going to be preparatory activity? So what can we expect to happen in regard to spectrum this year, especially seeing this allocation of this sizable chunk of funds? Cost of employees, we noted that levels 13 to 16 on the departmental budget constitute 25% of the staff complement, yet they take up more than 50% of the budget. This looks like a top-heavy, looks like the department is top-heavy. Can the department please maybe just enlighten us in terms of what accounts for what looks like a skewed lay of the land in regard to cost of staff, and then how is the effectiveness of COE measured within the department and across the entities? Are there performance? Is the performance management in place, and other consequences? My colleagues here have spoken about the despair that we all feel many times when we look at the work of the department. So clearly, goals are not being met. Clearly, executives are not hitting the targets that are set for them. And if they take up more than 50% of the budget towards human resources of the department, what consequences are there for failure to achieve? What the chair wanted to know whether there were any impacts on the budget of the changes to the fiscal framework. In relation to that, I'd like to know whether any changes to the budget, even the allocation within line items in the budget as a result of the changes to the outcomes, because some new outcomes have been added. Have those been supported by commensurate moves, alignment or realignments within the budget? The Honorable Delisha expresses concern around rationalization of entities. In our minds as the Democratic Alliance, we see it as different from privatization of entities, but we just see it as consolidating them, perhaps having fewer entities, and such as Emergent, BPI, and Centec. One other way that assists is in lowering budget. You have fewer boards, you just have less replication of issues. Is the department considering that, particularly in light of the high constraints, financial constraints that the DG mentioned? Is the department considering expediting, because we know that there's already talk about it, but expediting the consolidation of entities. And also just again on SA Connect, what's happening with the staff that are allocated to SA Connect now that it currently seemingly is at a standstill awaiting these funds. And then finally on the risks, excuse me, access and affordability of internet was mentioned as one of the risks. The MNOs have came to us and have pointed out that load shedding, vandalism are two of their top risks. All of them mentioned those as risks. And they did say that actually these risks that they face impact their ability to lower the price of connectivity. How is the department helping in this regard? Also, that the MNOs complained about USAF as well as parity in terms of how they are treated by the department, according to them. How is the department normalizing, or how would the department respond to that concern from the MNOs? And then corruption was also mentioned as a key risk. Excuse me. But rumors abound within the department, as in fact other state entities, of the role of middle management being the corrupt role of middle management playing a role, for example, in the award of contracts, in what information gets passed on to the principals, etc. And I know that, for example, the Minister of Infrastructure Development recently instituted a lifestyle audit within his department coming out of similar issues. Is the department considering lifestyle audits? And I know they've also been done at SITA. How about the department itself? And then finally, DG, you mentioned SABC and the SABC Centec debacle, but those organizations are literally at death's door. They are facing an existential crisis that could see one or the other of them close, literally shut down in the next month or two. What is the department's plan around resolving the issues pertaining to these two? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. Honorable Botlani.
Good morning, Chair, to the Minister, the DM, the DG, and the delegation and colleagues. Chair, I think when one sits in this room, there is really a realization that whatever engagements we make in this room should really be felt by the ordinary South Africans. And I think this is also what Honorable Vilakazi was alluding to say, we may be looking good internationally in terms of what we can benchmark ourselves against and whatever. But if the ordinary South Africans do not feel the work of the department, then it really means nothing. So I think the need for us to translate the conversation that we are having here to be felt by South Africans is the biggest thing. And that's how we are going to really get out of being called a developing state and really catch up, because that's really what it feels like. I think let's start with the issue of the budget cut. Understanding that there has been an almost 50% shortfall. What sort of cuts are going to be made? Are we going to see job losses? What sort of overhead cuts overhead costs are going to be re-looked at? And how soon can we do that so that it does not impact on the core business of the department? And I'd love for us to talk about, when we talk about budget cuts, to also balance that with the funds that would have been retained through the National Treasury in the last financial year. Because with my little understanding, National Treasury will say, I give you R1, and if you use only R8, then it means you didn't necessarily need the full amount. So how do we balance that? If you could just speak to that so that at least we empower on that. I've always wanted to ask the question to say, the department channeled funds into SAPO, which, if you ask me, is really not a sustainable organization. With the greatest appreciation that the business rescue process was a court order, with also appreciating that the business rescue practitioners are talking about exiting the business. And is the business stronger? I personally do not believe so. So the question would be, what informed I think it was 150 million that was given to SAPO by the department. And when we've heard that you've got the SABC, for example, which is equally ailing, what informed that decision? And I know there's an issue of saving jobs, but there should also be a realization that you do not save jobs for the sake of saving jobs. If you are going to have an organization that is on its knees and you continue to resuscitate, I think for me that is a real problem. So what informed SAPO over any other entity, example SABC? And with the budget cuts, as we have heard today, what support is the department going to give the SABC and again SAPO, if anything? What are your plans around that? The presentation talks about the department operating around in a legal and regulatory environment. And they also report about talking about evolving legal and regulatory landscape. But the response of the department is slow. And I like that they also highlight it as a risk. We cannot be having an awareness and being slow in the responses creates an imbalance. It really creates an imbalance. It means that we are really on a back foot again. And to the point, and of course the points have been made on the ECA. If we have an appreciation that we operate in a legal or regulatory environment, evolving environment, but we become this slow, and I know I've asked this question before, do we have the capacity to be responsive? Because the withdrawal of the target of the ECA almost says to me, perhaps we do not have the capacity. And tied to that, it is scary to have a conversation about leaving it to 12 months, maximum 18 months. Already the withdrawal thereof is a big red flag, and then leaving it to 18 months maximum. What can be done to shorten the time so that at least you speak to the worries that have been raised here by the members in this meeting today? Because I really think 18 months is really pushing out something that should have been worked on years ago, if anything. And the department talks about fostering a culture of innovation. Could I please ask for examples of how you do that? And also how you interact with sister departments, for example, the Department of Science and Technology and Innovation, I do beg your pardon to say. How do we foster innovation? What has come out of the department that we can say, aha, this is what we have done because we do foster a culture of innovation? Please cite an example for me. Chair, on outcome 1, the anticipated number of jobs that would be created is 150,000. In the previous cycle, what is the number of jobs that were created? So what is the baseline? What informs again the 150? Just so that at least we understand that this will be translated and be felt by South Africans. And obviously this is not a new idea. So what are you reporting on the previous financial year? And again, what lessons did you learn that will ensure that in the previous cycle, in the previous financial year, that will ensure that the 150,000 jobs that we speak about will be realized? I think Honorable Subrathi has really spoken to the 30 APP targets for 2025-26, so I will not go there. Chair, I would have loved to hear a bit more on the South African Post Office when the BRPs have already spoken to us about wanting to exit. And I don't think we've really had a conversation with the department about their intention to exit. What is the plan of the department? I've always said the BRPs and their existence at SAPO has created room for brain drain, because now you've got you've got acting CFO, you've got acting this, you've got acting that, and when they exit, what plans does the department have to ensure that SAPO remains on its feet, especially considering that the amount that has been drained from SAPO by the process of business rescue? And I think it's another unfortunate thing that you have BRPs that are going to walk away smiling all the way to the bank when people have lost their jobs and SAPO is not necessarily on its feet, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, it's an issue of processes. I've spoken to the 18 months. Where are we again on the broad digital migration? We know, I said maybe and I don't want to use the wrong word, the court gagging, stopping the process gives an opportunity. Is there any recent feedback on that? Can we get an update? Are we moving? Is there a lot still happening there? What is the latest? Chair, I also would have appreciated to hear a lot more about what the department wants to do about corruption, but perhaps to borrow from the suggestion that was made by Ndate Vilakazi to say, are there any plans to institute lifestyle audits, especially on the middle management? And the last question, I was worried when I saw DM leaving the room, because the question is for him. I saw him nodding when Honorable Talisha was talking about the rationalization of BBI and Centec and how that will now provide room for privatization. What was he nodding about? Because he was nodding when the point was made about the rationalization being about... Because that's not how we understand it. What did we miss? Because the understanding was that to synergize the BBI and the Centec. Why are you nodding when they talk about privatization? So, what was he nodding about?
Yeah.
So if you could just clarify, I'll stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kojani. Thank you, members, all of you for your inputs. Let's also thank the Ministry and the Department for the work that has gone into these documents.